Welcome to Expression Quest Podcast, where I talk to all kinds of creators about the experience of finding their voice, sustaining a creative practice, and how it all relates to their ongoing personal evolution. Did you ever want to start your own podcast? Well, Anchor makes it pretty easy to do. It's got everything you need. You can record, you can edit, and it distributes it for you on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all kinds of places. It's got everything you need, and it's free. Check it out. Get the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. Hey guys, welcome to episode 11 of Expression Quest Podcast. It's your host, once again, Nadia. And I want to, first of all, just acknowledge that it's been a little bit longer than usual. And I've just been hard at work, preparing some new things for the podcast. I started a newsletter, and I know that probably several of you who are listening right now are on it. And I invite anyone who's not to please join. You can do so at the link in the show notes. And basically it's just once a month and it'll kind of remind you to listen, and there's some extra goodies in there too. And so yeah, check it out. And then I've just been working on my first art workshop that's going to be tomorrow, Sunday, February 21st. And that's also been a process. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to, and why this particular episode is a bit delayed. As far as my artwork and my creative life, I was listening back to the last episode, and in that one I was talking about how I felt quite blocked, and I still feel a bit of blockage, I have to be honest, although I've produced several pieces since then. But even so, those have been kind of hard for me to get out, so I don't know, I just feel like there's something about this winter that just feels just very oppressive or something to my creative spirit. It's been kind of hard to get out from under it, to be honest. But I am doing a lot of writing, and I am still finding ways to express myself, and if I didn't, I don't know what I would do, so as for now, my art materials are gathering dust, but I really am hoping to kind of get a little bit more juices flowing soon. I can kind of taste it or something. I don't know if you guys experience your own creativity like that, but if you have a bit of a dry spell, you can kind of just feel just on the horizon some kind of, I don't know, breeze of inspiring juices coming. So that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. What else? I joined this thing called Lunch Club, and I really recommend it. I can even send you an invite if you want, just DM me or whatever. But what you do is you sign up every week, and then they set you up with a kind of, it's sort of like a networking blind date, if you will. And the point, I guess, is to have lunch together. And so it's somebody who could be in your field or could be sort of in a related field, and you just spend 45 minutes together and you talk about, business matters or whatever, just get to know each other. And to be honest, 45 minutes is a very long time to talk to a total stranger, right off the bat. But in any case, it's really fun because, I don't really meet that many new people, face to face these days. And it's pretty exciting, you know what I mean? And the people I've met on there have been, really interesting. I met this woman from Nairobi who kind of does a similar thing to me. She also is starting, a community art club type of thing with, a membership. Then I met this guy who does experience design. He works for Nickelodeon and he designs these theme park experiences. Yeah, a totally visionary, cool person who just dreams up magical environments. So yeah, that's been kind of something to look forward to. And then finally, I have joined TikTok on behalf of the podcast, but I think the reason that I joined it was primarily so that I could kind of have a reason to wear clothes, maybe. Because I don't know about y'all, but like, everyone who, is still working from home and stuff, like I've been having major challenges like getting dressed in a proper way anymore, you know what I mean? Like I've got all manner of stretchy pants and comfy clothes, and I just can't go back to like regular clothing anymore, but I feel like that it's also degrading like my sense of self in minor ways. Like I just don't really feel like as alive, you know what I mean? Wearing like something that resembles pajamas all the time as I did when I had to wear outfits and like look cuter and like a bit more composed. And I wasn't really like counting on this effect, but it really is kind of starting to get to me. Like I feel kind of like a slob a lot. And yeah, so this is kind of like a fun reason to sort of wear clothes and like, maybe just like explore some humor. Like I love comedy personally. Like I think I've mentioned that on some other episodes. And I myself, like, I don't think anyone would consider me like super funny, but I'm just like intrigued by the possibilities of like doing like little bits on TikTok and I don't know, just like minor, like amusing gestures and whatever, or like coming up with little stuff. I am an old millennial, you could say like the oldest possible millennial. I have to admit to being intrigued and very charmed by TikTok and like by all the little games and basically like the sensibility of TikTok. And I want to be a part of it, god damn it. And I want to like bust out of my shell a little bit and just kind of like, I don't know, just be a show off. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm shy, so it's hard. Okay, it's time for questions. All right, I don't know if you remember, but last time the question was, what apps or other tools help you organize or enhance your creative practice? And we've got some responses. Most of them are from Facebook, some are from Insta. So here we go. Okay, David says, Things app has been a joy. Task lists and planning projects. It's elegantly designed and fun to use because of details and stays out of your way. Cool. All right, Chris says Microsoft To Do probably has the most significant impact on my work out of all apps software not explicitly designed for art and media. I've started putting shortcuts for my individual lists on my home screen, and that's helped out a bit as well. All right, we have Stephanie who says Tasks on Google Calendar and Toby for Chrome to organize your tabs. I design books full-time, and with a busy schedule, having the tasks allows me to manage certain aspects of very large projects in between meetings. And organizing my tabs, since I work on multiple books at once, it's easy to categorize what research is for which project. Once all of that is sorted, I can be creative with my actual work, if that makes sense. It does make sense. All right, we have Amber who says Bed Bath & Beyond has a slender, tall roll cart, great for small spaces. And she did send me a small video of this, and I concur, it's really nice. It's like a tall thing, and it's got like many shelves, like something like 7 or 8 like small shelves. So it'd be kind of perfect for storing like a ton of like pens and markers and stuff, which she does use it for, and it works great. Then we have Linning who says Obsidian for notes and planning, Asana for tasks, Spotify, playlists for each project. Obsidian helps me put my inner theories on paper about craft and storytelling. I have a bad memory, so I'm constantly forgetting and remembering again. Asana is good for tracking goals and tasks, and it has a very soothing interface. I've tried a lot of to-do type apps, and I liked it the best. Okay, I really loved hearing about all of these, and I am obsessed with apps, and I love like organizing stuff, and I love to-do lists. I know that's dorky, but it's fucking true, and so I love hearing about these, and I love especially the tab organizer. I've never heard of such a thing, but I'm a person who always has like 20 tabs open on their browser, so it's cool to hear that I'm not a freak and that there's like a way to actually group them together somehow. That sounds really fun. So thank you very much. All right, this is this episode's question. It is, how important is it for art to be beautiful, and why? Why do you think so? Okay, so here I go. Okay, so thinking about it, I'm kind of two minds about this, and in the one on the one hand, like my first impulse is to be like, hell no, like beauty doesn't matter anymore. That's so passé. Like who cares if something's not like gorgeous? That's some like old school thinking. Like that's for people who think that Thomas Kincaid is like the greatest painter on the planet or something. Some kind of tradition bullshit. And however, when I really look at the art that I really enjoy, I really love when people can draw super well. Like I love like traditional skills, something that's like fully rendered, like the mastery of like making something that is like awe-inspiring and like gorgeous and stuff like that. So and I think that that is something that like beauty is, you know what I mean? It's just something that's like so like there's like an element of like perfection to it, you know what I mean? In the way that like nature is perfect. Like everything's been sort of like taken into consideration and everything's in its right place, you know what I mean? And it's like so, like I'm gonna have to say that like while it is basic in a sense to be like art should be beautiful, I agree to some extent, but on the other hand, I also appreciate art that just really isn't beautiful at all and is kind of like messy and ugly and just expressive of ugliness or of other, like intense emotions. I don't know, there's something that is like awesome to me about something that's like aggressively unbeautiful, and maybe it's just like the kind of like FU to the establishment of it or something, like the punk rock quality of things that are raw and ugly, you know what I mean? And I mean, it's like life is sometimes raw and ugly. Maybe like I'm responding to the fact that like to me, like what's true is what I want, you know what I mean, in art more than things that are beautiful only. And maybe there is a beauty to be found in the raw, and that could be like a way to say that something is beautiful, like maybe it's not in a traditional sense, but it's like truth is its beauty, of like a rawness or ugliness. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. So now it's your turn. How important is it for art to be beautiful and why? And you can call 609-795-2472. I would love it if you did, or you can just email expressionquestpodcast@gmail.com with your answer. Now the time has come for me to plug the Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee. So if you appreciate and value this podcast, please help me to keep it going. You can become a patron starting at $2 a month and receive bonus episodes and access to a monthly art workshop. Just go to patreon.com/expressionquest to get started. Or you can simply go to Buy Me a Coffee for easy one-time only contributions at buymeacoffee.com/expressionquest. Your contributions help me out with the cost of producing and promoting this podcast. And you are also helping to support a totally DIY, woman/minority run passion project that is giving underground artists, including myself, a voice. And there's a new shout out this episode to my second ever patron. Her name is Lisa Strykowski. And thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you and all that you do. I also wanted to make everyone aware that I've set a goal on Patreon to get my first 10 patrons, and I would love for you to help me out. If you are one of the first 10 patrons at any level, I will randomly choose one of you and I will create a custom portrait, original artwork, and I will mail it to you. So please consider becoming a patron and you'll get a wonderful portrait of yourself. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so now for ep.11's guest of honor. His name is Issa Ibrahim. He's a painter, he's a musician, a filmmaker, an author, pretty much an all-around artist. Someone, I consider him a pop artist of sorts. Someone who uses bright colors, bold shapes. I think of his paintings as like full of drama and like dynamism. He references pop cultural symbols quite a lot. Like, I think in his earlier work, he did quite a lot of paintings around superheroes. He's really kind of dealing with like the mythical in our culture and how power is structured in this country, you know, especially along racial lines. Issa is a Black American, and he very much explores his identity and like what it means to be Black in America with his artwork. An interesting fact about Issa was that he spent nearly 20 years at Creedmoor Psychiatric Center as an inmate, and unfortunately, he committed a serious crime while in a state of psychosis, which he fell into after the death of his father when Issa was in his earlier 20s. And the whole time he was there, he was making artwork, you know? And you can read all about it, in fact, in his book that's called The Hospital Always Wins. It's a very thorough chronicle of his time at Creedmoor and his eventual freedom from Creedmoor. It's full of misfortune, but it's full of spots of fortune, you know, and the things that he kept getting in trouble for in the hospital were also the things that eventually helped him to leave, you know? And that's some important relationships with some of the staff. Yes, some of it was romantic in nature, and that is a definite no-no in an institutional setting. But at the same time, I think it really enabled him to have a career and to eventually leave. Yeah, I think that Issa was a really unprecedented type of patient there at Creedmoor, and he infuriated the administration time after time. But, you know, like he explains in the interview, like he really thought he was going to be there for the rest of his life. That's kind of like what the sentence was, you know, like it wasn't for 20 years, it was like forever. So he's super lucky to be out, and so he really felt the need to express himself like right there and then, you know what I mean? So anyway, it's a real triumph, like the fact that he made it through there and is out, and I really, really appreciate his zest for life and his, you know, real drive to keep creating, to promote the work that he does and that his partner does, and the work that they do together. His partner, Susan Spangenberg, who was also a patient at Creedmoor, and they're a beautiful couple, and they live together in Queens now. So yeah, please enjoy this interview with Issa Ibrahim. Welcome to the show, Issa Ibrahim.
Thank you, Nadia Gomez. Nadi Go Go, not a ghost.
Yeah.
All your nom de plumes and nom de. I've been following you on Instagram for quite a while. I just love your artwork and I love your sensibility. So I guess it's a mutual admiration thing going on here, which is great. So
Cool. Yeah, yeah. I'm very grateful for our Instagram connection, and like I know you from my work with Icarus Project NYC,
yes.
which is for those who don't know, probably most people who listen to this, it's like an alternative mental health activism slash community group and stuff like that. And it's for people who have had poor experiences, I guess you could say, with the mental health system in America, and just want it to be
Which is just
better.
about everybody. Which is just about everybody.
I don't know though, because like from my point of view, like I know people who haven't experienced like, you know, huge crises and stuff like that, and for those people who just, you know, are on their meds for a little while or whatever, dip in just for like a minute, I think that they don't, you know what I mean, they don't understand the whole scope of like how incredibly
Oppressive
scary.
it could be and scary it could be.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a lot more refined too. I do believe I caught a little bit of that in my last couple of years in this in the institution I was in the asylum that I was in, and it was functioning almost like a normal hospital. You know,
Mm-hmm.
So it's been refined. It's I'm sure it's still hell on earth, but it's hell with ice water. So
Hell with ice water. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I guess that about institutions in general, that um, there's just a high likelihood of just like abuse of power
hmm.
in in general, because it's just like there's no checks and balances really,
Right, right.
you know?
And I
And
think also the constituents and the body politic, the people at large, want to keep people who they're afraid of or don't understand in a certain place. And so they're not that eager to close the asylums, or maybe even open up some more asylums and put people in there, you know, and keep people medicated and keep people off the streets.
But circling back to your art, like you're saying, like the powers that be that like want to kind of like marginalize and oppress like certain types of people, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think that
Especially artists. I really
right.
discovered in the time
Mhm.
that I was in the mental hospital that art is powerful. You always hear
Mm.
stories, and you always even see movies and read books and kind of get an idea that, wow, the artists really are counterculture and iconoclasts. But having to experience it firsthand, how the paintings I was doing were confiscated by the authorities and poured over for pathology and had me re-diagnosed, and just the power of art was frightening when you're going through it, but also validating. Let me know, well, I'm onto something here. Let me work it.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and I'm thinking of like, I'm gonna like forget the story exactly, but you
Hmm.
know how in the 60s, like maybe perhaps but like, dealing with like James Brown, and how
Yes.
they like asked James Brown to like ask people not to riot or something. Is that the story? Is
Right,
that what it was?
right. When it was, especially during the death of Martin Luther King, the assassination of Martin
Oh
Luther
yeah, yeah,
King,
yeah. That's
he
it.
was trumped out to say, "Hey, people, calm down," because he was considered at the time the voice of Black America. It's
Right.
almost as if, let's just, I don't know, we don't have any Black leaders anymore, but it's
Mm.
almost as if, let's say Barack Obama were assassinated. This is a horrible scenario, but and they trooped out, well, not Kanye, but
Kanye.
well, I mean, it's almost
Kanye's all we got now.
it's all we got. But it's almost like something like that, where they troop out somebody who they think is the voice of Black America to kind of keep a certain peace, because there was a lot of rioting going on after Martin was killed. A lot of rioting. Detroit burnt down. They burnt
Right,
Detroit
right.
down.
But yeah, but just like the real power that, like, yeah, they didn't have like, a black politician. I guess maybe there weren't that many black politicians,
Not really.
but
Not
yeah,
really.
but like kind of the most powerful black person at the time was James Brown, like in
Sure.
general. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I mean, it's just like, I mean, he's a total artist. So.
And then he had that great song "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud," which
Mm.
was a real thumb in the eye of the white supremacist power culture. The only interesting thing about James Brown, though, is that in the 1970s he's a Nixon supporter. He
Mm.
jumped ranks, so he's a complex figure.
He is. Yeah, I feel like that's the thing about artists, is like people always want them. I mean, like, I don't know if you have any experience with this, but I feel like people are always kind of like looking to co-opt artists for their own like political agendas as
Sure,
well. You
sure.
know what I mean? And
Because
I
they
think
know the
that
power. It's because it's very well known, the power of art, and that, the power of
right,
having an artist or visionary even on your team. So
right.
co-opting it's. Although
Yeah.
you have to admit that someone like Warhol kind of rented himself out to be co-opted,
Hmm.
and
Oh
made
yeah.
it very popular for artists to now say, "Hey, yeah, where's my endorsement deal?"
I mean, I think like to some, depending on the artist, it works, right? And some artists are like
Mm.
quite political, and they're, happy to be aligned with like this or that
Yeah,
stripe or something. But I
sure.
think, in general, like artists I always think of as a kind of like in a place beyond all that, you know what I mean?
Right, right. But
It's not
I've
about
done,
like,
but you'll
it's not about
notice
propaganda or something like that.
that's true. It's not about propaganda, but you'll notice a lot of contemporary art and even the work that I've been known to do trades in on popular culture.
Hmm.
So it's
Sure.
almost as if the art and your pop culture has blended or melded. So it's hard to
Hmm.
separate that. So of course, hand in hand in that with that goes propaganda.
Yeah. Well, you do a lot of work that looking at your work in like during the Trump era, especially,
Yeah.
I don't know if you did other like politically oriented work, but I guess the of that I've seen like dealing with Trump
Hmm.
is almost kind of like I look at it almost kind of like a political cartooning almost in a
Yes.
way, but like
Yes.
more like fine art, but you know what I mean? And I think
Yes.
that,
That's you got
yeah.
it. That's kind of what I was trying to do. Kind of like
Mhm.
elevate the political cartoon or merge the lowbrow with the highbrow and get a middle brow
Mhm.
that everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
That's
And I
kind of
mean
like
political cartooning is almost dead now as a
I
thing. I mean,
know.
it used to be like, and I mean it's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's like such a cool genre, and I mean there's just like no place in the culture for it anymore. Like really like
It's
some
got a history
writers,
that
but
goes back at least 100 years. And
oh
it's got
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
got
like the
amazing.
super brutal stuff from like the 1800s and stuff
Yes,
like that. That
yes,
stuff is so funny to look at. And
and very pointed and very accurate and very very strong as well as funny. So it's just
yeah, it's so mean. It's like I don't know. There's like no shit. Like there's no shadier artist in the ever than like the political cartoonist. I
right,
think
right, right.
it's like, damn, you really, you really drew that and stuff. And there's nowhere to hide. You know what I mean? You
That's
can't
true.
like, you
That's
can't.
true.
There's no
But
misinterpretation.
that's the freedom of art. That's the
Uh
freedom
huh.
that I feel artists tend to have, and if they embrace it completely, will have. And there's a fearlessness that goes with it. That if
Hmm.
you've got the right, if you're telling the truth in your art, and you're telling the truth in what you're trying to convey, and in your political views, whatever the truth is, then you're fearless, and you know that whatever happens, you're doing the right thing. And if you get,
Hmm.
you know, into a little bit of trouble, it's good trouble, as John Lewis would say.
Right. What was that experience like? You mentioned that and I've read most of your book. I haven't read
Mm-hmm.
like the last quarter of the book. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just bad at finishing books, but I love the book. The Hospital Always Wins is what it's
Thank you.
called.
Yeah.
Check it out. But yeah, and what is that experience of having like people like literally pathologize your art and like look at it as like a symptom? You know what I mean? I just find that to be like
It's scary and it's
just.
almost dreamlike.
Mhm.
When I was going through that, it was dreamlike because it was happening in real time. So
Mhm.
there's really when you're in a system and you're subject to an administration that can and will do whatever they want to do with you after a while, you go along with it, even though you're in fear, and you realize they're going to diagnose, they're going to re-diagnose. I wonder what it will be. Will it be narcissistic personality disorder? And it comes down, oh God, I'm a narcissist now. Will it be? Yeah. And so it's just you get caught up in a dream-like continuum that's very it's dream and nightmarish. It's dreamy and nightmarish. No, dreamy in that you know you're doing the right thing, so you're emboldened. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
strength in it. At the same time, there's a great deal of fear because I know that it may hold me back for years in this hospital. I couldn't get out of it.
Right. And I just wonder, it's like, how does that impact? Because, like, you as an artist, I think of you as a highly prolific artist. I mean, it's just a fact, So, um, and I mean, like, how does that affect, like, how you even can express yourself? Because I imagine it's just sort of like a kind of like internal like voice that's just like, am I gonna get like into deeper shit for like making this next thing even?
Yeah,
It's like
I
how
think about
has
that.
that like does that have like lasting effects even to now, of
I
like.
think about that. I also, be honest with you, considering that I've become over the years aware that I can really use my art as a potent voice. I sometimes wonder when I'm doing a piece, is this strong enough? Or is this kind of watered down and doesn't quite hit?
Mm, mm,
So I am conscious of the fact that I have something to uphold as a social political artist.
right, right. So are you saying that like you still have like a part of you that like is sort of like monitoring like the kind of art that you make sometimes, you know. I
Sure,
mean, we all have an inner
sure.
critic type of voice, but
Exactly, exactly.
um
He's my audience. That's the inner me who is my biggest fan and my harshest critic. And he's
right.
always and he'll push me to say, I don't know, make that a little harder, hit harder now. Or sometimes he'll say,
Okay.
ooh, that's a bit much. That's a bit much. Some of that Trump stuff I was doing. Um, there's one piece in particular called The Aristocrats, where I had the entire Trump family really just I pull out all the stops and had like a
Mhm.
sexual situation between Donald and Ivanka, and which
I
is
think I
based
remember that one. I think I
which
remember
is
that one.
based on a type of reality that was created by him and her. Um,
Definitely.
that sort of incestuous thing, but I just really played it up. And there were times I'd look at that and go, ooh, some women may think, oh, that's a bit much. Or, you have to kind of know that sometimes you may be pushing the envelope. But then as an artist, you also feel a certain freedom to say, go for
Yeah.
it, go for it.
Hmm.
Always pushing, pushing, pushing. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, this is like, not to, compare you to another artist here, but it just like brings to mind that like another guest I've had is the Sturny Thunder.
Yes, who I love.
Yeah, who I also love.
He's
And his
strong.
work.
He's strong, and he just really puts it out there.
Yeah, he's amazing. But, like he does a lot of work that's like erotic in nature and,
Mm-hmm.
some would say pornographic. He would say
Mm.
pornographic. And, it's but like your work also deals with like sexual situations sometimes, and I wouldn't describe you as an erotic artist primarily, but like you don't shy away from the topics, and looking through like your oeuvre and stuff, like you made it very easy to do, by the way, on YouTube. Like there's like a perfectly organized like walk through your whole life.
Yes, yes. Preparing for death. I'm preparing for death as we speak.
No, I think that's like really cool actually. I'm like, wow, this is like very
But
easy for me to. But anyways, just like yeah, I guess my point being like what was my point?
just the
Anyway,
sexual.
like
Well, I
your
do want
yeah,
to kind
your
of
sexual.
piggyback on that sexual aspect. It's really my comment on the pornification of the culture.
Mm, mm.
How I found it amazing and disturbing that when parents give their kids iPads and phones at 3 and 4 and 5 years old, they have access to some pretty hardcore stuff and they use
Oh,
it.
I know.
So
It's it's
it's
really
like
wild.
childhood has been obliterated. The innocence of childhood has been obliterated. So that's really what I was doing with that, using the comic book characters in hypersexual situations as if to say, this is what our kids are into now, people. This is what we've done
Mm,
to them. So it's a
yeah, for sure.
caution more than anything else.
Yeah, and I mean, I do see that in your work that it contains, sexuality is there's like a kind of like a dark side to it, that you're
Yes,
kind of exploring, right? I think it
yes.
seems like a sort of like like dealing with like abuse even, or like power dynamics, but like
Mm-hmm.
not in a fun way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I think like, compare and contrast with like Sturdy Thunder. I feel like he kind of maybe deals sometimes with those similar type of things in his erotic works, but it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like more like cutesy or something, but like, or like exploring just like the, like, I don't know, it's just like a different take, you know what I mean?
I'm
But,
always looking at the
uh-huh,
underbelly of the culture, the
yeah,
underbelly of
mm-hmm,
civilization. I'm fascinated at how low we've gone. And
mm-hmm,
these last 4 years are the epitome of how
mm-hmm.
low we could possibly go. And it doesn't seem
Yeah,
to have a bottom as we speak. You would
I
think that
know.
with the new president and new administration, there'd be a bottom to this, but the
Oh my
bottom is still
God.
dropping out. So that I've
Yeah,
always been fascinated and frightened and disgusted, and also like a car crash, you can't look away.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
whole mix of that whole American thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I do feel like, kind of like, in these conversations, I try to kind of like hone in on like what each artist like does in general, you know what I mean, with all
Mm-hmm.
their different work. And you do different things, like you are a musician as well,
I,
also
I did.
extremely prolific.
Yeah, I
Also
know.
extreme.
I've got a bunch of songs. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
went
have
through a
a
period where I always wanted to be a pop singer.
mhm.
In my mind, in the using what little talents I had or meager talents I might have had, I can kind of get by playing a whole bunch of different instruments. I somehow acquired a multi-track recorder while I was in a mental hospital, and I would record albums and release them under the nose of the hospital, which you weren't supposed to have a recorder because that was like verboten. So I figured, well, let me do it, and using what meager talents I had, I kind of wanted to live out a dream that when you're locked up in a mental hospital, your dreams get deferred. So whatever dreams you can possibly realize, you find yourself realizing if you have any kind of grit at all, because you know that my feeling was I may never get out of here. And I've always wanted to release a pop album. So let me do the best I can with what little meager talents I have and produce a pop album. I ended up producing like 15 of them over a period of time. And the songs just poured out of me. When you're locked up in a mental hospital and your girlfriend's coming from Jackson Heights to come visit on every weekend, that's a couple of songs right there, So it poured out of me.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say, well, I don't know how much you mean it, but you're not meagerly talented in any way.
Well,
Like,
I find
obviously, but
well, thank you very much. I do feel.
your songs are very like they're like I think you described it in one of your videos as power pop, and I would second that. Like it's like a power pop ballads, and I feel like you are a real storyteller, like, in all your
Thank you,
work, like
thank you.
kind of summing up what you do. It's kind of like you really are like someone who like is trying to kind of capture like some kind of zeitgeist, like make some statements about like this or that aspect of the culture and like, or things that are, going on with you,
I think
and like the environments you're in and things like
it
this. So,
behooves us as people, as people living
mm,
on the planet right now, at such a crucial juncture on the planet. It behooves us all to contribute to this moment. If not
yeah.
for people who will come after us, because we don't know if people will be coming after us, quite honestly, with this climate
I
crisis.
feel that way too. I feel that way too. I don't know, like, honestly, like, I don't know if you know people who are having kids, but I know people who are having kids right now.
Yes,
And I'm just like, damn, like, you all have,
yes,
like, a lot of faith right now.
yes. I
Like, you all
know,
have a
I
lot of
know.
faith. Like, I barely can, like, justify having a cat, I'm just
I
like,
know. We have two
I'm
of them.
just
And I'm still
like,
thinking, wow, is this a good idea? They're gonna eat it. They're gonna eat us at the end of the world. When we run out of food and we get locked in an apartment, the cat's gonna feed on us. But no, it's my partner and significant other, Susan, is also a very talented artist who's also going to be on your podcast
mm,
at some time in the
yes,
future.
definitely, 100.
But she and I always talk about the selfishness of people who want to have children, and I like how you placed it. I like how you say that they still have a lot of faith and a lot of optimism and hope. But we were at a crucial juncture and in civilization, and to have children, I couldn't justify it. I couldn't justify
Mm.
it,
I
you know.
couldn't either. Yeah, I couldn't even begin to justify it. And I mean, all the shit that I've been through in like my childhood and all this stuff.
Yes, I
I mean,
know.
it's just
You're going
like,
to be giving it to the
oh,
kids. You'll be.
holy
It's just
hell.
like our
Of
parents
course.
did. It's like our
Of
parents did.
course.
You know.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just like generational curses and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I couldn't live with myself
Yeah.
and stuff. I'm just trying like my best right now to just raise myself, like finish raising myself
That's
truly.
beautiful. That's
And that's
beautiful.
like what I seek to do with my life. So,
Finish raising yourself. That's beautiful. That's a great way of looking at it. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, because we are still children. I'm in my 50s. I'm still a child.
mhm,
I collect toys, those superhero toys. We got a
mhm,
bookshelf full of Batman and all this other stuff. I still have this desire to just be healthy and get over my childhood trauma. And some
mhm.
of us may never get over it. And I wonder
Yeah.
what older generations did, if they were even
Mm.
cognizant. I think we're more cognizant as a civilization of our generational
Oh,
traumas.
yeah. Oh, it's
Maybe they just,
I mean, can you imagine this? Like, even like 5 years ago, you type in like a word in in this Google tool, and it shows
Mhm.
you like how often it's been like searched on Google. But I
Mm.
bet if you put in the word trauma, that it's been like
Haha.
an exponential growth in the past like 5 years or something. Because like
Yes.
people cannot shut up about trauma now, and before it was like deeply weird if you even talked about it. So it's like even just in this past like little while,
Yeah.
like people are like weirdly like very sophisticated about it all of a sudden.
One great thing that
And
Susan and I
stuff.
were talking about that she mentioned, I think we both kind of talked about it, is that now that we're 20 years into the 21st century, we've kind of, I think, not officially, but very close to, have shed the 20th century.
Hmm.
And the 20th century was a mind blower, man. But anyways, and we're finally shedding a lot of the negative things of the 20th century that have held us back, and we're finally
Yeah.
embracing a 21st century sensibility, which is very
Yeah.
different. As a person of a certain
I believe
as a
it.
person of a certain age, it's very different. Having one foot in the 20th
Yeah.
century
Hmm.
and now another foot in the 21st century, man, it's a
I mean,
learning curve.
I know that this is not how you grew up because based on, your book that I read, but can you even imagine like the paradigm of like children should be seen and not heard, and
Oh
how
man,
like remarkably different that is from
I
like
know,
modern parenting
I
is,
know, I know.
it's just like, are you serious? Like it's
And
just so wrong.
those are our parents, though.
Yeah,
Those are
exactly.
our parents.
Exactly. I
So,
mean, like when I think about like the draconian shit that my parents must have been through, like
mm,
they grew up in like these Catholic boarding schools, you
mm,
know? I
mm,
mean, old school, like they were born in like the early 40s, and
mm-hmm,
I can't
mm,
imagine like, as a child growing up confined like that, and like,
mm, mm.
and I mean the impact that it has on you, even like, and on me as their child, I
Sure,
mean that's something that I think about all the time, and like
sure.
how I live my life now, like the fact that I work at CUNY, basically
Mm.
an institution. I mean it's like it's a type of institution.
Right.
It's nothing like a, a hospital, but in a way, like I've, anyway, I guess I'm trying to say that it has echoes, in like other
Yes.
people's lives. But yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, like just like, people your age and older, like the changes is like
It's a learning curve.
shocking.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah.
I mean, Sue and I often talk about pronouns, which,
Pronouns, yeah.
I mean, who would have thought 5 years ago that would be something that you would have to really be on top of, or else you're insulting somebody.
Oh
And
yeah.
they'll call you on it, and they'll get a group of people who call you on it and cancel you as a result. So it's really interesting how where we are and where we're going and where we've been. And I as a student of history, I always love history. I'm a big student of history, and a lot of it factors into my work and my writing, and
Sure.
it's just interesting to see the development and where it's going to lead us to. Good and bad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's a dynamic time right now, and
Yes,
anything could happen.
that's the
And
scary
stuff.
part. Yeah, it is. It's an unpredictable time, and that unpredictability uh, has cautions, man. That has cautions. You got to be careful. I mean, this whole
Yeah.
Proud Boy, neo-Nazi, white supremacist uprising. The South. They did say the South would rise again, and here we
Yeah.
are, man. And here we are.
It's
And you would think
wild.
I would feel better, and not by much, but still better if the uprising were just the people. But the
Hmm.
fact that the lawmakers and the congressmen and the senators are in with it lets you know, oh man, this is scary. This is scary.
That really, yeah, it's extremely disturbing and weird.
Yeah, because you can
Yeah, it
control the
is.
people. We've learned that you can control the people, or
Yeah,
find
for
ways
sure.
to implement laws to ensure everyone is safe and everyone is sound. Everyone's got their whatever, at least a little bit of pacification that passes as freedom or safety. But when the lawmakers are in with the fix, man, that's not good.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'm just kind of curious, since you bring up like the South, and I don't know, just like, this kind of political issues is,
Mm.
how do you think of
Mm-hmm.
like your relationship to like Black culture versus white culture, you know what I mean, versus
Well, it's interesting.
America, like I feel like America and it's like, you know, racial dynamics. So much of America is about race, I think. And like
Yes,
that's such a part of its DNA,
yes,
you
yes.
know, and like
It's
for
it's
newcomers is like you have to like declare your race, you know, that's like vital to being an American, you know,
sure,
and stuff
sure.
like that. But as
Well,
an
it's
artist, it's sort of like you have a sort of transcendent function too, you know, in a sense.
mm,
So.
mm. Well, the whole race issue is it's a wound that hasn't healed.
Mm,
It's still a festering wound that hasn't been attended to properly. And
mm,
until it does get attended to properly, and who knows what to extent that should or would or good or could happen, it will always be a problem. Um, but growing up, born in the middle of the 60s and growing up in the 70s, I was inundated with being sat in front of a television, I was inundated with pop culture, and that plays a huge part of my art. Um, but I always had an interest, thanks to my father, in history. So while I was big on the Beatles, I also knew jazz, yeah,
mm,
and its trajectory in American culture. So I was always kind of like given a dual education of white American culture and the truth.
sure.
Um, and just it's a balance, I guess. It's a balance because I make power pop. I love pop music. Um, at the same time, I know it's really just hard blues or blues with a producer. you
Mm,
know,
right.
um,
Yeah, some people would say, you know, kind of like culturally appropriated, right?
culturally appropriate. Exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Um,
You're like reappropriating, or maybe.
yes, it's a reclamation. It's a reclamation.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um,
Mm,
I'm not the first to do that, but I know there's other
sure, sure.
people who I've listened to who I'm very enamored with, who are kind of drinking from the same well. Other Black people who grew up the same way, more or less, or grew up in the same time, that
Mm,
couldn't help in the squeezing out process. When you're a sponge and you're taking it all in, then when you start squeezing out as an artist, it's going to sound like the Beatles. It's going to sound like Led Zeppelin. It's going to sound like
mm-hmm.
Bobby Vinton. It's going to sound like a
Yeah.
lot of really odd things that you grew up listening to that are touchstones in your life, until you finally get to the core and finally squeeze it all out and get to the core of who you are and what you're really all about. That's kind of where I may be right now, which is
Mm,
why I haven't made any music in a while. And even my artistic output has slowed a bit, or it's been a little more judicious, and I'm being a lot more thoughtful. And to have this artistic awakening or this artistic moment at a cultural moment that we're having racially, it's deep, man. This is like
mm,
this is my moon landing. This is like a touchstone. So a lot of work that I've been doing lately in collaboration with Susan, my partner, has been very raw, real, and right, and
mm-hmm.
very unapologetically Black, as I've seen on people's t-shirts.
Cool.
you know.
When you say unapologetically Black, like when applied to your work, like what do you mean?
Well, in that a lot of the work I was doing, well, context, to put it in context, during the latter half of the 20th century, after the civil rights struggle, and they killed our leaders, and they said, okay, well, fine, we'll let you go to our schools and we'll let you eat in our restaurants. There was like a mass hypnosis or forgetting or silencing of the movement. And it was
Mm,
just like, you couldn't talk about race. They've invented sayings like, don't pull the race card,
right.
as if to
Yeah.
say, what? I can't bring up the fact that you're being racist to me. So there was like a massive silencing
Mm.
that I grew up and
Mm.
grew into.
Like being colorblind also, that's like another thing type of
Exactly,
thing.
which is
Right,
bullshit,
right.
really.
Yeah,
And
it
we're
is bullshit.
realizing it's bullshit. But like, so a lot of my early work, my artwork, was coded and masked, and I used the superheroes who wear masks as a double metaphor to the masking of not being able to say outright, this is bullshit, you know. But now that we're at this moment where we can say that and not flinch or not turn our eyes down, I find that my work is not masked anymore and coded, and so I'm at a different. I've released the superheroes.
Yeah.
I also realized that no hero is going to come for us. I was kind of hoping that someone would save us. You know, so there was like that childhood hope of a messiah or some black messiah or some politician or somebody who would deliver us from this mess we were in. But then discovering that it only gets worse, I've released my hold on waiting for Superman.
Right. Like your superheroes who were black, like the ones that you painted in the past. You're talking about maybe.
Yes. So now I've really just given up on painting the superheroes and painting the metaphor of the masking of the truth, or at least the coded truth. And so now the more recent work I've been doing has been much more straightforward and much more to the point. And you know,
yeah, and in fact, I mean,
it's freeing. It's freeing.
Right. I mean, maybe part of it is also that, I mean, well, it's been quite some years, but like you're not in an institution anymore, like fully
exactly
at all.
Where I had to mask what I had to say. There were times I was very forthright in what I said, and it was confiscated. So that let me know, okay, they're going to take your work. Not that I minded being subjugated personally, but it hurt when they took my work. You know, so to not have my work stolen again, I learned to dance around the issue and mask things and code things. But since I've been out for like 11 or 12 years now, besides a short little stint that I did a couple of years ago where I had to have my medication readjusted. But since I've been out for 12 years, I have a freedom to speak, a freedom of voice.
Right.
And having that freedom of voice in this new movement of truth, it's oh man, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Cool. It's overwhelming, actually. Because a lot of things you have to unlearn as someone of the 20th century too. A lot of behaviors and ideas and concepts that you have to unlearn.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's almost as if like now is some kind of time where like things could actually be different maybe, but then it's like the last cry of the old guard as well, simultaneously.
Yes.
And like they're not going down easy.
They're not going down easy.
They're not going down easy.
Right. And they've done
like
a lot of indoctrination to their kids too. There are a lot of younger people who are also kind of screwed up in their head.
And I mean, does it
carrying over the situations.
And then does it fascinate you like the like, kind of rise of like cultism and how it is, there's so much cult activity in America and probably around the world, but just so much, and like even things that aren't really cults but they have a cult dynamics, and that's something I personally like do studying on all the time, and just the kind of you know, narcissistic dynamics that are so prevalent everywhere. Like it's not even like, oh, like the old guard only, like it's everywhere you go. And I mean, that was kind of at the heart of a lot of the issues we had at Icarus as well. Not to call Icarus a cult, but it's like, you know, the problems that we did have were those same, like, you know, ever-present cult issues of people,
a charismatic leader
abusing their power.
Yes, you got it. I agree with you.
Abusing their power, and you know, people getting hurt, and
I agree with you.
It's sad. Yeah, it's but you know, sometimes I have a lot of hope right now, but then other times I'm just like, this is interesting. I just find it interesting because it's like, okay, I'm just taking myself as an example. Like I'm a person who is like semi, you know, obsessed with like, you know, like I said, raising myself and like, you know, unlearning things and, you know, doing reading and whatever, therapizing myself and what, et cetera, et cetera. Like, not to say I'm like so advanced, not at all, but a person who's like engaged in that process and stuff.
Right.
But even so, it's like there's things that I'm not aware of that happen. And I'm just like, wow, I was really an asshole, you know, or like, wow, like, am I really behaving like just like my mother right now? And, you know, just all this stuff that at a certain point, it's just kind of like, anyway, sort of beside the point, but it's like, you
I
know,
think that's great though, to be self.
can change happen sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, self-awareness is important. Self-awareness is, I mean, I
Self-awareness is fragile, I think, very
yeah,
fragile.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I guess I just wonder, like, okay, you're talking about, you know, your process being more raw now and stuff, which sounds really interesting.
Less
And I guess
veiled,
I just
more
kind of
honest, more
like
direct. Yeah.
more direct. I guess
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, what is your, you know, these days and like maybe in former times too, how do you approach your art in a sort of like in the kind of the practical doing of it? Like, do you get ideas and write them down and then revisit them, or like what exactly like how do you go about like creating your art, or do you have like set times each day where you do it?
I
Like,
practice.
do you have to be in a certain mindset? Are you a disciplinarian? Like, you do like, you know, some people are like, I must do it every,
I
I
know.
don't
At
like,
this
what
time, I
is
wake up, I
your,
have my
yeah,
coffee, I
yeah,
stir,
yeah.
and then yeah. No,
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious about your general
I
overall
don't
approach.
necessarily have a practice, and thank God I'm not at the point where I have to jot things down because I'll forget them. But I do take in a lot of information.
Mhm.
I listen to NPR when I can. I watch the news constantly. I sleep with the news on, which my
Oh,
girlfriend really
wow.
finds ridiculous. Uh, but and
So
so
you just like indoctrinate
I
yourself
just
like all night.
indoctrinate. Yes, yes. Anderson Cooper is my guru. No, but that's a joke. But I do take in a lot of information and a lot of news, a lot of different news if I can. And so I'm just well informed, or I'd like to, maybe not, but I keep abreast of what's going on. So being current with what's going on allows you to then filter that into whatever creative impulses that I may have, and it will come out reflecting something that's pretty current. And you know, like a page out of today's newspaper. If I'm lucky, maybe a page out of tomorrow's newspaper. You know, if I'm lucky,
Okay.
those are the good pieces.
So really like the you kind of just like do your paintings like as your ideas come to you basically.
Yes, usually.
Mm-hmm.
But I will germinate. I will kind of
Sure.
think. I think a lot, and you know, I'll just kind of something will in the whole stew of news and social practice and social awareness, something will bubble up, and
Mm-hmm.
that bubbling up will probably be an artistic idea that I'll then run with. You know,
Cool.
it's
And do
whatever
you
rises to the surface.
cool. And like how do you go about like do you do like extensive sketch first, or do you like dive right in with your
It
paints,
really
or like how do
depends.
you
It
do?
really depends. If I want to do something like that's reflective of a certain personality that people will know, I'll do some research. I'll maybe download some images or just kind of work from source material. But lately, I haven't been doing too much. That was a big deal, big aspect of my practice beforehand.
Mm,
Just nailing the
right.
likeness, you know, using your skills as an artist, as a renderer. But lately, I've just been going with it and feeling a freedom of not being chained to my source material, you know,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and just going more with the feeling of it and trusting myself and trusting that it will come out close enough. You know, people will get the reference. People will get what I'm trying to say, and not be so hamstrung by, oh, it's got to look just like this guy, or it's got to be just like that. Yeah,
That's cool. That seems like a kind of also like a kind of like a privilege of being like a more practiced artist as well, is just like kind of having that more yeah, more confidence in your ability to
that's
just like go
true.
for it, you know,
Thank you for
and
saying
stuff
that.
like that.
I do have a great deal of confidence in what I do because I've been doing it since I was a child.
Yeah.
And you know, so Sue and I have a lot of discussions about that, about, you know, facility, how easy things may come, and how working in source material, do you need the source material? I feel fortunate and blessed to have the talent that I have, the gift. It's not even a talent, it's a gift that was cultivated by a little bit of schooling and a whole lot of work when I was locked up in the mental hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to work that hard to necessarily nail a certain aspect of something. It kind of comes naturally, and it's a gift. I'm always awed by it. Not that I awe myself. I mean, so I'm smelling my own farts, but it's like, wow, I pulled this off. Good, I pulled this off. I got this one out.
Cool.
It's,
Can I ask, like, how many? Well, it depends on the painting, I'm sure, but like,
Mhm.
how long does it take you to finish a painting? Like,
I
to
tend to
like do
work
it?
all the way through on something. I don't like to break because
Oh, wow.
I do really feel like the inspiration when you're working on something and really into it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you break from that, it it changes. It gets influenced by the meal you ate, the dream you had, the day that went into the whole period that you then started again. So I try to really stay with it as much as possible in the moment until from start to finish, if I can.
Oh, wow.
And there have been
That's really
times I've
fascinating.
stayed up for hours, all night long, working on something into the next day to keep that inspiration going, to keep those juices flowing. It's that's something I firmly believe. And that's not good for the body, especially now as I get older. I really feel those overnights, I really feel it. But
Yeah.
that's a practice that I do. If you mentioned practice,
Mm-hmm.
that's a practice of just staying with it until
Mm-hmm.
it's done.
I can relate though. That's how I work. Obviously my work is not, not like yours, but it's different. But I feel that like it's like the times where I don't just like kind of do it all in one go is like
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just like lose it, right? Like I
Yes, you
lose my
do.
interest or like I lose the
Yes.
feeling and stuff, and it's just kind of like what the hell was I even thinking? Or like I don't even like I'm
Right.
like if I go back to something, it's like kind of amazing. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but I
Right.
get that. But yeah, but also like, it speaks to your that you work fast though, you know what I mean? Because your paintings are quite intricate sometimes, and so
Yeah.
it's like yeah.
I guess that's the benefit of doing it for a while and learning the shortcuts, I
Hmm.
guess. Learning the shortcuts and employing them.
Oh, I guess I heard you say in like one of your interviews, I think that like you after you like complete like a work that you'll like spend time, maybe like looking back on your old works and like sort of using it as a kind of like a tool for like understanding yourself.
Yes.
Is that something
You
that like
you
how do
brought that
you
up. You
yeah,
brought that up about
okay.
self-therapizing. I don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah,
that's even a
yeah,
word or a phrase.
yeah. My dumb word that I made up.
No, but that's very much what I've learned to do. I learned that in the mental
Mm.
hospital. I came into
Oh.
the mental hospital totally out of my mind and with no firm understanding of myself. And in those 18 to 20 years that I spent writing, making music, and painting, I learned to look at what I was creating and understand the struggles and the victories and the whole aspect of human life that I was going through, at least through my work. I got to see myself through my work and understand myself and look at something 6 months later and say, yeah, I know when I was going through that. That over there, it was that. And that's the doctor over there. So you just kind of find a way to, like you say, therapize, deputize.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think for me, like, growing up, like I think I was like kind of separated from my emotions, in a
Mm,
lot of ways.
mm,
I think because of different kinds of trauma and,
mm.
just being in survival mode and things like this.
Yes, we're all in survival mode, man. We're all in
I
survival
know,
mode.
that's just like capitalism, basically.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think especially when I was young, I just didn't have the resources at all that I have now. Which I
Mm.
like, I'm like
Mm-hmm.
clinging to my
Mm-hmm.
resources that I have now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, and so it's like I felt like I was quite alienated from my emotions, for a long, long, long time, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's like, the art that I do now, it's like a sort of way of like for me to like commune with those emotions and to kind of like give them like room to, to be somewhere and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so yeah, but is that like how do you feel like, your emotions relate to your art? Because looking at your art, it is like has like it is very emotive, a lot of it, but it's also got a lot of ideas, I think of it as
Yeah.
like almost like equal parts like intellect and like heart or something like
Well, thanks. That's
yeah.
quite a compliment. I tend to be very cerebral. I tend to be very cerebral, and but I also want to put heart in it because I've got a lot of things I care about. You know, so just to say that, for you to say that I have equal parts intellect and emotion, that's a brilliant compliment. I couldn't have thought of anything better to say. That's what I yearn for. That's what I think all artists strive for. And if they hit it at least a couple of times in their career, then they're lucky. So I consider myself a lucky guy.
Yeah, but now you're saying like it's maybe a little bit more like emotional for you at this point. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Definitely much more. Definitely much more. Yeah, because I was flash frozen in the 20th century like you. I guess. Yeah, I mean, I was. I was. In the last part of the 20th century, you weren't allowed to feel. You couldn't pull a race card. I mean,
oh my god, you're barely allowed to feel now. It's like I find that incredibly wild.
Yeah,
like just
yeah.
I don't know. Like I just feel that like the way that emotion in general, emotionality is like hugely oppressed. It's like an oppressed minority.
Yeah.
And just like I mean, there's more awareness around it now, but it hasn't like changed the fact that like people really aren't that interested in emotions, their own or many other people's, you know what I mean? So
I think the internet had a lot to do with that. Or the cyber culture. I know I'm sounding old man, but I think just that the whole idea that you can get lost in your phone and it's all in your phone, and it's all about you in your phone, and
disembodied.
Yeah, and you don't have to really look up and engage with anybody, and if you do, it's a very cursory, very quick, and get out of there type of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna ask about like your career as an artist because you like have been painting and making music and film as well for a very long time. And and I think that one of your skills as well is marketing of yourself and your artistic pursuits as well. It's like a lot of people aren't great at that, like necessarily, or they have other people deal with it or something. So I guess I just want to ask like you to comment on your career, and I just wonder like because and you mentioned this in like something I heard that like that some people consider you an outsider artist, but like that's not, and I agree with you, and I don't know if you still feel this way, but I don't really think of you as an outsider artist. Like you're not like like some weird
Toothless black guy,
Appalachian Grammy or something like,
exactly.
or something, or like like somebody who doesn't speak or something. I don't know. Like you speak for yourself, believe.
I'm still trying to find myself. I'm still trying to find where I fit in. By virtue of my mental health history, which is profound, I would be an outside artist. But I was painting and working in the field for years before I got sick or ended up in a mental hospital. I was freelancing. I went to art school for a little bit, and I was painting since a childhood. So there was a facility and a certain gift and a certain ability to paint. So I don't know if I really fit in the outsider art milieu, outside of the fact that I have a mental illness that's profound and a history that's profound, and it factors into a lot of my work if you look for it. But at the same time, if you don't look for it, you won't see it.
Right.
So, Mike, that's an interesting question asking me about my career, because I don't know where I fit. I'm just trying to get in the door any way I can. I'm just trying to sell my work, have people adopt it who care about it, make a little bit of money off it so that I can live and just not have regrets as an old man, because I'm now at the age where the bloom is kind of off the rose. And I'm not some hot young stud, going to the galleries, because it is all a young man's game, or young person's game when you're in the arts. And once you reach a certain age, they're not interested. It's only when later in your 60s, late 50s, 60s, 70s, when they rediscover you, if you're lucky. So I'm at a point where I'm kryptonite. Nobody wants to touch me. But if I can just stay frosty and stay vital and stay relevant in my own work and sell it occasionally, which is what I do. I have some outlets. I'm on a couple of different platforms where I'm lucky enough to maybe sell a painting every couple of months, for a little bit of money, and that's all I need. I'm blessed in that I'm living with someone who loves me. I've got cats that can tolerate me. I don't have to work that hard. I've got an apartment. I'm blessed. So I don't,
Mhm.
I'm looking at the positives in my life and not the aspect a lot of people my age would look at of, oh, I'm not famous enough, or no
Right,
one's
right.
noticing my artwork, or
Mhm.
I can't get into this show, no galleries want to take me, and blah blah blah. I don't really
Yeah.
worry about that too much.
Well, I think now too is like a very interesting era for artists, because there is more of like a direct connection to consumers. You know what I mean? To
Sure,
collectors, and
sure.
I mean I think that wasn't necessarily the case before. Like and there's like
Well,
people that
Warhol
are.
made that happen. Warhol just
Mm,
opened that up, and everyone in his wake, every generation has gotten more and more savvy to the point where you're more of a businessman than you are an business person than you are an artist. If
mm,
you're out there trying to sell your work, it's a
true, true.
prerequisite to have an Instagram account and tweet your work and share it on this, that, and the other platform, and it's a prerequisite. So
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, like, would you ever get on TikTok? I just got on TikTok to like maybe try to promote the podcast.
uh-huh.
It's very funny. Like, I'm like amused and a little bit daunted, but I
Yeah.
just feel like you are such a funny, engaging person. And not saying you should like go there and like be a clown or anything, but like
That's
not
probably
at
what would
all.
happen. That's probably what would end
Yeah.
up happening.
But also like I don't know, I guess I'm just saying that like Christy Gordon, like the woman who
Yes, who
was
I
my
like.
last guest, is huge
Yes.
on TikTok. By the
Wow.
way,
Wow.
huge. She's got like like thousands,
Right.
like
Right.
15K followers or something. Like
Wow.
everyone on there is like whatever young,
Right. Right. Right.
but like people know about oil painting now because of her. I just find that like so amazing and
Hmm.
like I don't know.
Good for her.
Anyway, I
Good
guess
for
I'm
her.
just saying that
I
that
haven't really thought about it. I've looked at it. I know what it is. I've seen examples of it, and I've seen how things can. I look at the outliers on TikTok.
sure.
I look at the guy who was skating while listening to Fleetwood Mac, the older
Yeah,
Spanish
yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The outliers,
Yeah, that.
people who aren't 15 and have perfect bodies and perfect teeth and live in perfect houses. I look at the
Oh
people who.
yeah, there's like all kind of people on TikTok. Yeah, not only like, yeah, 16-year-old dancers or something like
Right,
that.
right, right,
But
right.
yeah, it is cool and I just wonder, because I think that you have like also you like keep up with stuff. Like I mean it's like quite a there's people who like are older people who like barely know how to use email or something like you know what I mean. Like I work with them, like no shade, no tea, no shade, but like you know what I mean. It's just like so
Yeah.
I just anyway that's just like a thought. But um anyway, because I just feel like you all like I feel like you could connect with a lot of people.
I'll give it some thought. I'll give it some thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not. It's an interesting platform, and it's only 15 seconds. It's a very limited platform, right? I think.
You can do 15 or 60. Like there's two
Mm-hmm.
options. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
But anyway, so yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I'm just kind of gonna start to wrap up here, but
Okay.
yeah, was there anything you want to say, I guess, in closing, or like you can also like do any kind of plug or any sort of like upcoming project or anything you'd like to mention?
Yes, my partner Sue and I have been doing a lot of work lately on collaborative work. Which was very difficult for us for many years because she's very immediate, and you'll discover this when you
Mm.
interview her. She's very immediate and very instinctual, and just explodes on the canvas.
I
And
love her work, by the
I
way. I
yes,
think
she's
it's
great. I
amazing. It's
know, I know.
beautiful. Yes,
But I tend to be a little more, actually, a lot more deliberate
sure.
sometimes, and so putting that together was sometimes a clash. But lately, we found a sweet spot, and so we've been doing a lot of work lately together, and we're planning a two-person show. Whether anyone will
Cool.
take it is a whole other story. But we're planning a two-person show. We have the name for it, and it's called Snafu. Situation normal, all fucked up. And it's a comment on the world we live in, waking up in the world we live in, and how we're dealing with it in the artwork that we create. And so we're really excited about the work we're doing, and that's kind of what we're plugging. We've also got an Etsy store where we sell a lot of artwork for very affordable prices, and we've also got other work that's been in gallery shows on Artsy that's a little more expensive, but also very good stuff. Both of us. At Fountain House Gallery, where we show our work. We're also on the Art Lifting platform, which is a platform for developmentally disabled and mentally ill artists. It's more corporate stuff, but if someone's looking for corporate work by mentally ill artists, you can check that out. I have a YouTube channel, which is a lot of wacky fun. I don't know. I'm just trying to stay relevant and trying to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think you're doing it. Okay. All right, thanks so much, Issa. This has been really fun. It's been a great combo.
Great. Thank you so much, Nadi. And keep up the great work. I follow you. You're one of the few people who I look forward to your drawings. They're like messages from another place. That's fun, but also a little scary, but just as fun. It's like scary with charming colors, so it's just wonderful stuff. So just
that's really funny. I love that. That's like my new tagline. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, I hope you have a great night. Say hi to Susan.
I will. Okay.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care now.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe to get new episodes automatically at anchor.fm/ExpressionQuest and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter @ExpressionQuest. You can also support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/ExpressionQuest and gain access to bonus episodes and fun creative workshops, or with a one-time donation on buymeacoffee.com/ExpressionQuest. Sign up for our newsletter at expressionquest.mailchimpsites.com. See you all next time.